Phoenix Kitchen. My name is Stacy Williams and I'm your host. We're going to talk about fire, food, and flavor. We'll discuss recipes and techniques for both indoor and outdoor, where we'll add that secret ingredient, smoke, to get the most flavor out of all of our recipes. We're glad that you joined us today. While you're here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all our recipes. If you like the content, hit the thumbs up and leave us a comment. If you make the recipe, don't forget to share a pic. We're on the road to our first 1,000 subscribers. When we hit 1,000, we'll be giving away a 5-piece Lodge cast iron cookware set. To be entered for the giveaway, all you have to do is subscribe and leave us a comment. Now, on to our video. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about chili. The first thing we need to realize is chili, as we're discussing it today, is a stew. We're not talking about chili con carne, which is Texas style with strictly meat, right? We're talking about stew. This thing has beans. That's going to offend some people, especially down in Texas, but that's okay. Just don't jump in the comments and tell us we're making it wrong, because you know what? We're making chili the stew, not chili con carne. So let's get started on how to do it. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and create some beef stock to get started. To do this, I've got bones that I've saved from a tomahawk steak and some beef ribs. Those are going into water to boil, along with salt, pepper, garlic, and coriander, and a couple of big bay leaves. And we're gonna let that just reduce down by about half. We'll fill it back up again, and then reduce by half again, and we'll have our beef stock ready to go. All right, while that beef stock is getting happy, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our peppers. We're gonna be using a blend today of California peppers, New Mexico peppers, and anchos. So the first thing we need to do is take these dry peppers and get them into water and let them rehydrate. So I've got a little pot of water on the stove coming up to be warm. We're not trying to cook or boil these. It just helps them to absorb the moisture and rehydrate. So we're gonna get about 6 ounces total for our recipe. We're just gonna take about 2 ounces of each of the 3 different peppers. It's not a magic blend. You can pick which peppers you like. You can pick hotter peppers, or you can pick milder peppers, depending on the flavors you're looking for. The important thing is to get a blend, and we're gonna put those into the water, let them rehydrate, and then we're gonna be making those into our chili paste. Okay, so the next thing that we need for our chili is gonna be meat. Obviously, our meat of choice today is beef. So I'm gonna bring out the old trusty stand mixer, put on the grinding attachment, and we're gonna look at some brisket trimmings that I have from making a brisket. You know, we never wanna let anything go to waste, and we can trim that brisket up and it makes excellent chili. If you don't have brisket trimmings, this could be a chuck roast, this could be leftover steaks, any kind of beef that you want. The one thing that I don't recommend if you want really good chili is just buying store-bought ground beef, because you're getting whatever the butcher puts in. The scrap pieces of cow that are left over to try to get as much money per pound out of that as they can, profit-wise. So you can control exactly what's going in and the quality level of your meat if you go ahead and grind it yourself. And that's what we're going to do today. So let me go ahead and get this set up, and we'll go through the grinding. All right, so we've got 3 pounds of brisket trimming. I've cut them up into smaller strips so they'll fit through my grinder. And as always, we want these partially frozen so that the fat doesn't emulsify and gum up our blade. And we'll get this all ground up and ready to start cooking. All right, with our meat ground up, time to check back in on that stock. Looks like that we've reduced by about half, so we're gonna go ahead and pour in more water, bring that level back up, and then we'll let it reduce down again, really concentrating all of the flavors that we can pull from those bones, and everything nice and seasoned up, very, very beefy. And then we'll look in on our peppers, Those are looking nicely hydrated. I think we're about ready to go with those. All right, so since the peppers are ready, we're gonna go ahead and make our pepper puree. So we're gonna get the blender set up. We're gonna take all of the peppers out of the water, put them into the blender. We're gonna add the water back in small amounts, pureeing it until we get the consistency that we're looking for. We do want this to be thick, but not necessarily a paste. We're really looking for more of a sauce consistency. And of course, we're gonna do the magic thing. We're gonna taste and make sure that we're okay. You know, normally you won't need anything, but every once in a while you might find a little pinch of salt just helps to pull out the flavor that you're looking for. All right, with the chilies out of the way and the beef stock drained and strained, set aside, ready for us to go, we're gonna go ahead and get the ground beef into the Dutch oven, get it started with the browning process. All right, so this next step is extremely important. We're gonna be cooking this over a medium heat because we don't want it to cook too fast. We want to be able to render down the fat and really let it soak in. But you notice we're adding salt and pepper right now. We're not looking at the recipe and saying, what are all of these spices and let's add them all at the end or all at a certain point. When it comes to salt, we want to salt in layers. We want to make sure every ingredient gets its share of salt so we don't miss anything. This needs to cook down and be seasoned. We don't want it sitting there waiting for seasoning to happen. And remember, when we talk about seasoning, we're talking about salt versus all of the other spices. That's talking about our spiciness level. Right? But when something is properly seasoned, it has the proper amount of salt. Now, with our ground beef getting happy in our pot, we're going to go ahead and get a couple other ingredients that we need to go in with it, namely onion and bacon. That's right, bacon is an extremely important part of chili, at least in my world. Bacon's a part of everything. So we're going to go ahead and get this onion diced up, and you're going to notice some nice big chunks of bacon that I have. That's from our homemade bacon. When we slice it up, some of those pieces are not regularly shaped, so we have to trim up to keep things square, and I keep those nice big chunks for just occasions like this. Dicing it up to go into chili, to go into green beans, to make bacon bits for salads. Nothing ever goes to waste. All right, so the ground beef is browning. We just added some nice chunks of bacon. So the bacon's not only going to add us a little bit of oil that we need, it's also going to give us some smoked flavor. Because remember, this beef has not been smoked. The paprika in the seasoning will also add a little smoky flavor, as will the beef stock, because the bones that we used were from a tomahawk steak and some beef ribs that had both been smoked. So that's going to give us an extra depth of flavor. In addition to the peppers that we use, we're adding that layer of smokiness. Now there is one other place that I can get a little extra smoke, because I realize a lot of times the steaks that we cook are a little too large and Gail doesn't end up eating one of those. I always keep those in the fridge for just such an occasion. So I've got a few pieces of leftover steak. They're seasoned properly, they've been smoked, and you know what? When you chop them up, they become just like ground beef. We can chop those up and throw those in. Any beef that I've got can go in. This is just going to add more quality and an extra layer of flavor. All right, time to check on our ground beef. Give it a stir. Let's see how we're doing. We want to make sure that we're browned all the way through. The onions don't have to be cooked. They should just be starting to soften and turn a little translucent.
because obviously this is going to end up cooking much longer once we get everything into the mix. We just want to make sure that our ground beef is ready to go. Alright, our ground beef is nicely done and most of the fat has rendered down. So we're actually going to remove the ground beef and onions at this point because we want to drain the excess fat. Otherwise, our chili is just going to have a layer of fat floating. So we want to go ahead and get this drained out, empty the grease out of the pan, and then we'll go ahead and put the meat back in the pan to continue cooking. Okay, so we've got the meat drained and back into the pan. So now we're going to add our chili spice blend that I've already measured out. So we're talking about salt, black pepper, and garlic, cumin, coriander, mustard powder, garlic, onion, and paprika. You'll notice the one thing that we don't talk about is chili powder. So many recipes will call for ancho or chipotle powder, chili flake. We don't need those because we made our chili sauce. The dried chilies that we use to rehydrate and make that sauce are the same dried chilies that would have been ground to make those powders that we would have added, and those powders would rehydrate in the water that made chili. We're simply making a more concentrated flavor by rehydrating those and blending those down and letting those really get all of the flavors together. So we pour this in, we're going to stir it and make sure everything is mixed in very well. We're going to bring that heat off for a moment while we get this in. If you could smell this place, oh, it is so amazing. Those chili peppers, the smoke is starting to come out, and all of those spices. I'm ready for chili, but the problem is chili's not ready for us. Chili is one of those things that the longer it sets, the better it gets. So we're going to cook this, let it go slow, and we're going to bring this thing off of the heat and let it go into the fridge and set overnight. We're going to eat this 1, 2, 3 days later. We can eat it straight out of the pot, and it'll be tasty. But my gosh, it's going to be so much better when those flavors have had a chance to really get happy together. Okay, now what we're looking at in that pot at this moment is the chili con carne that we referred to earlier. It's just the meat, the peppers, some onions. But we're going to make it into a stew, like we said. So this is where we're going to go in with that beef stock. We're going to loosen this up. We're going to make it a little soupy. I want it a little thin at this point because it's going to have time to simmer and reduce down and thicken up, and it's going to bring in all of those flavors from that beef stock. The smokiness from the bones and the bone marrow and the little pieces of meat that were left on those, the salt, the pepper, the garlic, the coriander, the bay leaves that we added to that beef stock. Those are all going to reduce down and become part of our flavor profile. Alright, so we've allowed that to simmer down a bit. You can tell from the sides of the pan that it's reduced just a little bit and starting to thicken back up. So now it's time to go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients that's making this our stew. And one of the things that we're going to be adding first is going to be tomatoes. These are tomatoes that we grew over the summer through the garden, and in order to store them, we actually went ahead and roasted those, peeled them, and put them in the freezer. Had them out for a couple days. We're going to add those in. We're going to add in our beans, and we're going to make a nice, delicious stew out of this. Now we're using light red kidney beans for this particular batch of chili. You could use dark red kidney beans. I like, actually, there's a tri-blend that I usually pick up at my supermarket where you get the light red, the dark red, and cannellini all in one can. That's actually my favorite, but they were out, so we went with the light red, and I think that it's going to work out just fine. Alright, the chili's been simmering for a couple of hours. Time to do a taste test. We're going to have these with Jalapeno Cheddar Cornbread. Look at that. It's a thing of beauty. I'll put a link in the description below for the video showing you how to make that Jalapeno Cheddar Cornbread. So we're going to grab a bowl and and get some chili and get it all garnished up and see how it tastes. And there we go, a beautiful bowl of chili with shredded cheddar cheese, garnished with green onions, our jalapeno cheddar cornbread, and on Gail's bowl, a little sour cream. If you like it, add it. I tell you, it's delicious. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you'll go out and try to make this recipe. I guarantee you on a cold day, you will absolutely love it. See you next time.